Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Ask the Experts webinar. My name is John Neral. I am joined today by my fabulous expert colleagues, Robin Merle and Maria Rosati. We'll take a moment to introduce ourselves to you and just welcome you to this webinar that we have entitled, Take the Fear Out of Networking. It is not about selling yourself. So as we get started today, if you would, in the chat, would you please put in one word that describes your thoughts about networking? And with that, Robin, would you care to start us off with introductions, please?
Sure, but I really want to look at that chat and see what that one word is.
We'll let them
We've
come
got
on
two
in.
words. We've got two words already.
That's right.
Okay. So social capital. Hello, Dean Marote. I hope I probably am not saying your name correctly. Good to see you. So I am Robin Merle, and I am the author of Involuntary Exit, A Woman's Guide to Thriving After Being Fired. And I'm thrilled that it was a gold medal winner from the Nonfiction Writers Association. I am also a certified fundraising executive, and I've been in the field for over 35 years and am consulting with many nonprofit organizations, not just about how they raise money, but also with the executives in those organizations who are facing some of the same issues that I wrote about in my book, Involuntary Exit. So it's been a nice integration of those two lines of thought. And I'm happy to introduce Maria Rosati, who is a star in my book because I interviewed her early during her career transition. Maria?
Yep. Hi, welcome everyone today. I'm Maria Rosati, and I'm the CEO of Eminence Communications. It's an integrated marketing agency, and I work to build brands and reputations for companies, startups, and individuals. And I firmly believe that we all should be controlling our narrative, which is something we will be talking about today. And so with that, I think I'm gonna turn it back to John, and we're gonna get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Maria. So welcome, everybody. My name is John Neral. I help mid-career professionals who feel stuck, undervalued, and underutilized show up to find a job they love or love the job they have by helping them build a professional GPS to get there. And one of those components is about networking. And I have asked everybody to just, if you have a word or two to put in the chat about how you would describe networking. Elsa wrote social capital. Tom wrote multiplicative. And we just want to kick off this conversation with everyone today because given what you are hearing on the news, whether you are fearing a recession is looming, you are concerned about whether or not you will have a job in your current company by the end of the year, the one thing that is most important is the power of your network and how they advocate for you, and at times when they are unable to advocate for you and what to do with that. So to get us started, the way that we'll frame this today is we have a series of topics and questions that are focused around our objectives that we will talk to you all about today and share our opinions. And then at the end, about bottom of the hour, we'll open it up for some Q&A, and we certainly welcome your questions. You can use the chat function, you can use the Q&A function, whichever is easiest for you. But Robin and Maria, to get us started, what I'm very curious about is, how do you define your quote unquote natural network?
I'm going to let you start, Robin.
Oh, thank you, Maria. So I love the phrase, the natural network, because I think when most of us think of networking, we think, oh no, I have to go and talk to all those people that I saw on that Zoom. I don't remember their names. I don't know who they are. How do I even get them to pay attention to me? But our natural network to me is almost anybody who is in your contacts, especially your favorites, and that you've worked with in any position. Many times, people that you've worked with, it just happened to me, it was 2 employers ago, they've moved on to other places. And once they move on to other places, that multiplication factor kicks in. And you start to be introduced to the people that they have met and cultivated throughout their years. And what the final point I will say about this, so your natural network, again, the people you know, the people around you, your circle, your family, the people in your contacts, but never forget that one contact results in a cascade of contacts. So you do not need to know 300 people like you might read on the internet next to when you read and you're trying to diagnose that scary red bump. No, both of those things are usually false. One person will lead to many, many contacts. And that one person can start with somebody you knew at your former company. Maria?
Yep. And I would just expand on that and say, naturally we all think of who we've worked with, but there's also people that are friends of friends that you might be in the same industry, but you've never worked with.
Yeah.
I also, I live in Manhattan, so I'm friends with the, people at CVS. I've known the same pharmacist for 20 years, but, so there are people you interact with daily too, that get to know you over time that might not be a natural source that you would think of, but it's really just going through, what do I do all day long? Who do I interact with? And I think there's more natural connections of people that you talk to that you're comfortable with, that aren't as scary as the work colleague that sometimes, is off-putting. So anyway, I would just say we all have a bigger network than we think. And to Robin's point, go through your phone book, go through your phone, and I do that periodically when I'm creating an event. And I'll just go through my phone and say, who should I invite? Who's this right for?
Yeah.
Or I go through my LinkedIn and I just start to categorize people. So I'm just saying, in this digital age, we all know more people than we think we do. And before turning it back to John, one of the things we wanted to highlight today is that more people are willing to help than not. So we're all afraid to reach out, and you'd be surprised at how many people are willing to help you. I think over time, obviously it has to be reciprocal. You can't keep asking and not giving, but everyone is here to help, and the ones who aren't won't respond. So, that's, no harm involved. So I'm going to turn it over to John, because you have something to say.
Maria, that's such a good point. And to our collective point about social media right now, I believe it's important we have to be careful of vanity metrics. We look at how many likes or how many followers, or we put something out there and who kind of chimes in. It's a great opportunity, as you mentioned, to do that kind of networking audit and look at that robust 5 or 10% in your network that are always there for us, that are quick to like, share, comment on a particular post. And if you haven't chatted with them directly in a while, or if you know they're quote unquote a fan, and you haven't spent any time with them recently, a great tip to re-engage them is to schedule a 15-minute call with them. Do a phone call, do a Zoom. If you want to go a little extra step, send them a $5 Starbucks gift card and say, look, let's have coffee, I'm buying. And you can do something like that to just warm up your existing network, because Robin, I loved your point as well, which was, one person has a cascade of other people in their network, and asking that simple question of, who can you connect me to? Who do you know I can help? Those can really open doors as we start building networks that, to our point today, doesn't lead to us selling ourselves. Right?
Yes.
Yep.
Speaking of that, Robin,
Yes,
I know
John.
we each kind of decided to pick a particular topic today. I want to start off with you and pass you the ball here. And would you tell us, please, why selling ourselves is the opposite of building relationships?
Sure. And I chose to focus on this because, again, going back to my fundraising as a career, I am probably one of the few people that loves walking into a room of people I don't know and starting conversations, because I've been trained and I've practiced on building those relationships and how to get the conversation started. And I know Maria's going to guide us on that as well, and how to finish the conversation. I also want to comment on John's point about the people that are consistently with you, that you see coming up when you post, or that you speak to. One of the rules in fundraising is that 5% of the people contribute 95% of the funding. It's the same with your
It's the
social
same rule
network.
for
Wow.
sale
5%
too.
are going to
Mhm.
give you 95% of your connections, because we're not talking about volume, we're talking about quality. And because it's a quality relationship and a real relationship, it's not about selling. John and I were just talking about, oh, those people that reach out to us and say, well, we think you should need my service and let's collaborate in a new partnership, and we don't even know who they are. So I think when you start really talking to somebody, and right now, while we're speaking, you write down 3 names or 5 names that have been supportive of you. They don't necessarily have to be related to where you want to go, but there are people who have been supported of you that have networks you don't even know about that could be helpful if you help them connect the dots. So one way to help them connect the dots is, before you go into a conversation, think in your mind about, what is the goal? What do you want to get out of this conversation? Do you want to get out information about what it's like in their world and their community? Do you want to get on a podcast? Do you want somebody to introduce you to John Neral and say, can I be on the podcast because I have something of interesting to speak about? Or do you just want to start a next conversation and really building the relationship because you don't know where it's going to go? So one other thing about when you start a conversation, I know Maria's going to get into this, and why it's not about selling, there's always follow-up. There's always follow-up. It should not be a one and done. And that's really the meat and potatoes about what a relationship is. It's an interrelationship. Ideally, you should be helping and giving to each other, and it should be ongoing, so that you feel you do not have to go in with an elevator pitch, because people can smell that a mile away. It's like, why is Maria, who I've known for years, pitching me about something that she wants to do, that she wants my help with? And instead of coming across as real and sincere, people can come across as desperate or grasping. It's a John Neral word, or just a little bit too needy. And you really want to maintain your dignity and your grace when you're talking to people about what you would like to happen next. So here are my 5 criteria. I'm going to wedge this in for a successful networking meeting. Was it an interesting meeting? Whether you got anything out of it in terms of a job, was it interesting? Did you learn something? We do so many rote things all day long. Isn't it fascinating to find out something you didn't know about when you talk to somebody? Will you learn something new? Oh, I didn't know. John just told me that some of the folks that he's dealing with may not be concerned about the recession, but they're concerned about other things. There's still the great resignation that people are processing. What am I learning about the labor force? And what am I learning about my own dreams for what I want to achieve? Will I be able to help this person in any way? As opposed to just asking for help, will I be able to help them? We always, a group of us always say you should end a networking conversation. I don't mean to steal this punchline from you, Maria, with thank you so much, and what can I do for you? And of course, will they be able to help me in any way? And finally, will this help me decide on my next step? Will I learn something that will help me decide, not take me there, but help me figure out what my next step would be? All of those questions are the way that the conversation naturally forms to have a relationship, not you coming in saying, this is what I want, this is who I am, can you help me? What do you think, Maria?
So Everything you just said, I made a note on, and pretty much goes to my points, but I'm going to expand a little. So, one of the things you said, when you're building a connection or reaching out to a connection, it's not a transaction. You're building a relationship. So you don't just reach out and that's it. And we're all human beings and we all love flattery. So when reaching out, I always say, hey, I really respect you and I'd love your advice. I'm navigating a career transition and I would love your thoughts. And again, I don't see how anyone would say no to that. So I think that's an immediate opener. And it's establishing trust, just showing a little vulnerability. You're acknowledging that you value their opinion. I will also tell you, I know someone that is had a career pivot, and she spent some time in the last few weeks with former colleagues who just validated her. So sometimes even just reaching out to a former colleague and saying, hey, I'm struggling in my current job and I would really love for you to tell me, what I'm good at or the value I provided when we worked together. So it helps build back your self-esteem and it's again furthering the relationship. But it's all non-transactional. It's all what am I trying to say? It's it's in the good of building a relationship. But I also find the more you talk to people, the more doors open. So you might go in with an original question, and then as the conversation takes twists and turns, then you get 3 more ideas. So write them down, follow up on those people. And I say to my friends all the time, just talk to people. So, if you're looking at changing careers completely, go on LinkedIn and see who in your network is in that career. And shoot them a note and say, I'm navigating a career change and would love your thoughts on the industry. Again, the people will help when you show that their advice and their insights are really going to have meaning for you. And then, as what Robin said, is, you got to go in with that call to action. So I guess that's what I'm saying. You got to know what that call to action is first. And the last thing I will say is I was in corporate communications and media relations, and I had to travel with executives all the time for media interviews. And there's nothing like sitting in a car with the CEO for half an hour while you're traveling to CNBC. And it's like, what do you say? So I always had a list of 10 questions that you can ask people that are conversation starters. What's your favorite sports team or something like that, to just start to break the ice. And also it helps you get to know them better so you can keep identifying questions. So I guess to sum it up, it's all about being curious, and you have to be as much curious about the person you're asking help from as you are about, learning about your career transition or whatever the networking issue is. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Yeah, these are all such great points, and of course, this is one of the reasons why all 3 of us get along so well, is that we take the needy and the graspiness out of it to really focus on how we're building those relationships. And that's difficult at times, especially when you do have a big ask, right? You're looking for a new client or a new job or a new connection that's going to lead to some kind of sale. And we keep thinking about the outcome and we forget all of the other stuff that happens before that. I like to think of networking as a bank account, and every single person that I'm connected to is an asset in my bank account. But it doesn't mean anything if I don't continually making deposits into that account. So where do I add value? Where do I give a little more than what I have in the past? And it's very funny. I haven't shared this with either of you yet. It's very funny how things kind of fortuitously happen as you get ready to do a webinar. So I connected with somebody last night. I got a LinkedIn request. It had a little note attached to it. Sitting there watching the end of Celebrity Jeopardy, and I click the accept button. Okay, so all right. So I get a follow-up message from this person. Now, as a frame of reference, I host a podcast called the Mid-Career GPS Podcast. I get pitched a lot. Okay. Here's what the message said. I'm not going to give you the person's name. I'm going to protect anonymity, but it is a pleasure to meet you. I noticed we have mutual connections. Would you like to be connected on LinkedIn? We are already connected, but I'm going to let that one slide because that's a copy and paste issue. No problem. Keep going. I wrote a couple of pieces on blah, 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 based on my experience going from being a blah to a blah. I thought this could be a great topic for your podcast. Please let me know if you'd be interested in a collaboration. Absolutely not. No. You know why? Because everything is in the first person. It's all about them. Right? When we go to network, right? So when we talk about, selling yourself is the opposite of building a relationship. How do you start and end a conversation authentically? This is all about them. They're not looking to serve my audience, give value to my listeners. They're looking to promote whatever pieces, and I don't know what pieces are, right, that are out there. Okay. I don't know. So here's what I will do. So I will take some time later this afternoon and I will write back something to the fact of, no. I will be a little more diplomatic than that, but I will probably say something like, no, this isn't a good fit because, and I will give them some unsolicited feedback in that way.
So, John, to
yeah,
interrupt you, and our readers might find this interesting, but me having a marketing agency, I will tell you, one of the common mistakes in marketing is people write their website all about what they do. Our company was founded and it does this, but what people want to know is the solutions you provide to make their life easier. So it's the same thing as what you're saying is lead with how I can help you or vice versa. But when it's all about you, it's clearly self-serving and the person's done no homework to even recognize that you were connected. So it even falls further on deaf ears.
So, and I think okay, John,
I
think that there was something that Maria said that could just be glossed over, but I think is the crux of what we're talking about. Be curious about the person you're talking to. Now, we all have friends that we've had for 10, 20 years or 5 years or 3 months. There's always something new to discover about them. Always. These are whole lives that are in front of us. And if you're genuinely curious and you read, you don't even have to do a lot of research. Sometimes I don't. I just look at where they are so that I can ask genuine questions. What is that like being an orthopedic surgeon? Does that mean you're really good at carving turkey at Thanksgiving? What do you
have more skills than that?
I say that because I've seen incredible turkey carving, but anyway, what do you like to do on the weekends, and then why? Not just, okay, but I've asked my question about you, now let me get on to tell you about myself. And what Maria was saying is when you're in the company of somebody that you have to get to know because it's a contrived situation, you ask the follow-up questions and you do get to know things about them that make it that much more easy to connect to them the next time and the next time. And that's what that's how the relationship blossoms.
Yeah.
Yes. And as John said, we're in a digital age. So just look at if someone's active on LinkedIn, what if they posted about the last, couple of times, or what organizations are they involved in? Hey, what's it like to be a part of this organization? Hey, what's it like? I just saw you move to Denver from Phoenix. Or, there's so many things in a digital age that you can gather about the person to come up with 5 questions as an opener.
And I will say also, given how we're telling you to build the relationships, don't panic. If your call to action is not answered on that first call, set another time to connect. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes. You can follow up in a text, you can follow up in an email, but don't rush and make that conversation null and void.
Yeah. The whole idea about being curious and giving at the same time is such a beautiful marriage of two wonderful networking values that if
Mhm.
we all went and did consistently, we would absolutely see exponential results than what we are. There comes a point in time though where you can't give all the time, right? You need to have an ask. And we've shared a little bit about how to ask for that. It can also be disheartening when our network fails us, when we get let down because no one in our network can specifically help us, or they forget, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
busy. Our call to action or our ask is not the most important thing in their day. We want to be top of mind in some way, but it can be pretty disheartening when our network isn't there for us. If that has happened to you, if it has happened to you when you've been actively looking for a job or you've been trying to make more connections, my best advice to you is this, and Robin and Maria, I'm curious your thoughts on this as well, but my best advice to you is give more. Find a way to reach out to your network and be of greater value than what you have been. Find who to connect somebody to. Ask them what they need. Come from that place of value and service that a good networking connection is going to find some way to return the favor. And that will re-energize and breathe new life into your network at the same time, while you are still actively pulling new people into your network that you see are valuable and interesting connections, who you just want to be curious and see who you can connect to them as well.
And John, I something I do often is, and I'm sure most of us do this, but every morning I have, a plethora of newsletters and emails from news organizations. So I read in the morning, and so a lot of times I just take articles and I send them to people and say, "Thought this would interest you. Oh, we had a conversation on this last week, and this article states." Blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of things like that to also re-engage the conversation if your network hasn't served you. I mean, that's a great opener. Just thinking if you read this.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I have a different take on some of
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
I think there is a point where you stop. You stop. And what Maria is talking about are touch points along the way of getting that call of action answered. And sometimes when we're not answered on things, and again, I go back to fundraising, we make assumptions. They don't like me, they're not interested in what I'm saying, they heard something about me. We tend to start doubting ourselves and go into the dark zone. And usually none of those assumptions are correct. And it goes back to what's going on in the other person's life at that time. And maybe they need space and maybe they need time. We all know during the pandemic, we had no idea if somebody suddenly came down with COVID or not, and they were non-responsive for a long time. And so we have to, give them that space. And when I said, don't panic if they don't get back to you, try them again down the road when, maybe it's a month or so. And by that time, you've brought other people in. And I love John's point, you may have new people to connect them with, something that would be of interest to them. The other thing, and I thought you were going there, Maria, is the timing of what you send. So I know there are certain people that if I send Thursday night, they're going to read it because they get all their administrative stuff done Friday, and then they're gone for the weekend. And then I don't hear from them from a week. And if you're lucky enough to recognize those patterns, you'll say, oh, I sent it at the wrong time. Or there was somebody I just wrote to, and I said, usually she either responds to me immediately or doesn't respond at all. Went into the assumptions I just told you not to go into, like, oh, it's a done deal, it's dead, they're not interested. No. So because I had built up connections and relationships, I was able to reach out to somebody who knew this person and said, something going on in their life? Yeah, there was something going on in their life. And then I said, should I write back? No, I'm going to see them in a month and I'll mention it to them. So you have all the connections, your community working on your behalf, and you're not in the position of knowing nothing and not, and not responding, respecting what's going on in their lives. And then sometimes there are people I don't hear from for 6 months, and suddenly they pop up liking a post or sharing a post. So they're still in the network. But they may not be able to help you with whatever you're looking for. And so you move on to other people.
Yep. Great points. Absolutely. And so what we want to do right now is open it up to all of you. So if you have a particular question or anything related to networking that you want some help with, now is the time to go ahead and use the chat function. You can also use the Q&A function if you'd prefer. But I've got the chat window open, so I'm just telling you, please kindly put it in the chat there. But now's your time to ask a question to one of us particularly, or to all of us. We're happy to chime in. But anything that you specifically want help in regards to networking. And as we're waiting for questions and comments to come into the chat, who is the best networking person you know? In other words, tell us about the person who is somebody who has a networking approach or strategy that you absolutely admire.
You're asking our audience?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you both too, but I'll just chime in real quickly here. So there's someone from my local chamber of commerce. He makes it a point at the end of every meeting, and he'll say, when do you want to meet again in 2 months? When can we meet again in 60 days? Whether it's a lunch or a cup of coffee or a phone call, he constantly just wants to keep his network warm. And he's one of those people where I'm not a great resource for him specifically, nor is he for me, but we know people, and that's a good thing there. And as comments or questions are coming in, so Susan's asking, how much time do you spend networking each day?
I don't think there's any time to it. It's just when it comes natural, it's not, but here's another thing is I post a lot on LinkedIn, and there are weeks I'm more active, and we're all active on LinkedIn, but even, putting a post out and tagging some people that are friends of yours, that's a good way to open it up. So it's just when things hit you, and like I said, sending that article, but I wouldn't consciously say it's got to be 5 hours a day. And John, to your point, I can't think of someone in my network that I think is a great networker, but I have a friend that we're both entrepreneurs. So we check in every 3 months, and we throw each other leads, and then we nurture it. And then we have a call every 3 months, and we're constantly, just helping each other and engaging each other, because we both know a lot of people, and we're sharing who we know and who we just met. And so it's a very natural flow. And I guess that's the point. It shouldn't be something that's unnatural and a 5 minutes a day type thing. It should just be a natural flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that I do spend, it is natural, but I make sure I spend a minimum of a half an hour a day. And then what happens naturally through the day, other things happen, but I make it a point in my mind to reach out to somebody either new or that I haven't spoken to in a while, because it gives me a lot of joy to do that. I stopped writing my memos and my emails and all of my, points to consider things, and I get to reach out to somebody and think about them. And so at least a half an hour, probably on average, at least an hour every day, I do something.
Yeah, I have gone a very similar route in that I have gone away from trying to fix a certain time to schedule. right? Because then I find like, there's something else that needs my attention. So but at the top of my to-do list, there is the word connect, right? So I always try to find who I can connect. So if I get 15 minutes on a given day, and it might be in the morning, it might be in the afternoon, maybe it's a post, maybe it's just an individual outreach, whatever that is. Robin, to your point, it's about, this is what's going to give me joy. This is going to
Yeah.
make me happy to reach out and connect. And then I'm more likely to do that. I wish I could do the same thing with broccoli, but I'm getting there. But, it's that same thing about just being able to find the time, but make it something enjoyable, right? If you don't like networking in a way that somebody has told you, don't do it. Find your own approach and your own way of building those relationships authentically, and what we're talking about with you today. So that helps.
And I would just say, John, that answers the last question on the chats about being an introvert and how it's draining. So find a way that isn't draining. Again,
Yeah.
maybe it's just messaging on LinkedIn to start, or something, so that when you do go and set up a call or a coffee or something, it's not as strained. Because I can even tell you, I'm an extrovert, and I was at an event last week, and it was a small room, and you're networking with new people, and I'm like, I do not miss this. I do not miss this, and I'm an extrovert, so that's not natural to a lot of people, but that's not all networking, right? That's what our conversation's about.
Yeah.
Right. And I think also to the introvert, extrovert, and how draining it can be. So extroverts draw their energy from being with people. That's supposed to be the way it is. So we go out, we talk to people, we get more energized, and we're little Energizer bunny people, and we go and talk to more. It really doesn't happen that way, obviously. But if there are people you're speaking with, again, that tell you something interesting, tell you something new, give you joy in any way, it won't feel like a chore. And if you're still, and sometimes I'm so energized, I have to get up and walk around and just do something physical, which is always good for whether you're drained or overstimulated, and just to level set. And I recommend that, because just get out of the way that you're thinking at the moment, do something that you like to do, walk around the block, buy something, do whatever you do, and just level set. But I do think that at least have one out of those three conversations that doesn't drain you.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the chat, Elsa's written about, I panic when someone wants to sell me something. Saying no to a meeting that I know is a selling meeting is difficult. And what I'd offer you here is, that's your thought. That's the story you're telling yourself about, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I'm going to be nice and go through it. At the meantime, you've got other stuff on your calendar that needs to get done. What I want to offer everybody today, though, is that there is a lot of there's a lot of power in saying no. There is also a lot of respect in saying no, right? To simply say, no, I'm not interested. This person I shared with you before, when I go to write them back, I'm going to simply say, thank you for reaching out at this time. This is not something I'm interested in carrying as a topic on my podcast, but I appreciate you reaching out and being connected. Thank you so much. I'm not going to have a meeting with this person because I know it's not going to go anywhere, right? And it's not going to go anywhere because that's my thought on the thing. If I don't want to be sold to, or I don't want to be pitched, like, out of respect for everybody's time involved,
Right.
this is a no. And then when you say that, like, just breathe, like, let that, you don't have to explain yourself afterwards. Just breathe and let it out, and then go about your day and do something you want to do. Yeah.
But, you made a great point, and I saw that Rita liked it too. And I love the way you said it, but there's nice ways to say no too. No, I'm not interested. Thank you for the invite, but I have a prior commitment on the calendar. I mean, it's nice, but you're also giving a hard no. And, it shouldn't be hard to deliver. You shouldn't feel bad.
Right. And then there are some other requests where I'll hear from somebody. I just heard from someone I hadn't heard from in 20 years ago. And I was like, oh, for 20 years. Said, that's interesting. And it was one of those, I'd like to talk with you about this opportunity. Okay. And I asked back basically, what is the opportunity? And then I got more stuff that was sort of not telling me what I needed to know to decide how I could help this person. So I decided to ask something that I've started to ask a lot of people when they start to unroll where they want to go. Is there more to this story? And if they write back, yes, I really need to talk with you about things that they don't want to put down, and then they give me enough information, I'll say, okay, let's have a 15-minute call about it. But asking the questions, what is it that you are looking for from me? Are you asking me to do something that you need, done? It's not actually a no, but it gets them to, I guess this isn't right for either one of us. If you ask enough questions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Jocelyn Bowman in the chat says, I love the idea of focusing on the joy from the connection. When I moved to New York 10 years ago, Robin invited me to meet with her, and I attribute so much to that meeting and being valued in the moment. So Jocelyn, that's awesome. And then, Rita shared some words here. She said, thank you for your outreach. This isn't in my area of interest. However, I have a big network and I will pass on to someone else in my network who might be interested. Rita, you read my mind with the follow-up chat there. You said, and I do pass on to someone in my network. I don't just use the words, because if I'm in that situation, I would want someone to help me in that way. Absolutely. Right. It is about honoring your brand and your values, as well as following up on what we say. So I appreciate you clarifying that and putting that in there, because there might be someone in your network who may be a better connection, right?
Yeah. And I just want to say a big thank you to Jocelyn. I know that coming to a new city and starting a new job is perhaps the biggest challenge for networking. And not only did she go to an industry event, and this is where we met, but she followed up. And she followed up with different people. And it was really the way she followed up, the fact that she didn't let the thread go. And also Jocelyn, to the point we're making, is somebody who has gratitude and appreciation days. And she's very good at writing a little note to somebody out of the blue about how grateful she is for something that they may have done many, many months ago. And it's a wonderful, joyful exercise to do. And I imagine it gives Jocelyn joy as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right. What other questions do you have? And I think as we're waiting for some other questions, as we're coming up on quarter to the hour, I think now is also a nice time for us just to share a little bit more how you can connect with each of us. I have all of our contact and website information that I am going to go ahead and put in the chat. But Robin, I know you have something you wanted to share. And then
I do.
Yes. And then we also just want everybody to stick around too, because we have a question for everybody in the group as well before we wrap up today.
I'm trying to get back to the chat here. Just bear with me, because I'm going to put this in the chat to everybody. Okay, so this is
so
to
Stacy,
everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, Stacy,
Okay.
Thank you for putting that in the chat. I'm going to steal your +1 because I've never seen that before. And I don't know if that's like you're giving a point to Rita or whatever, but I absolutely love that. And I've never seen that before. So thank you. Robin, back to you.
Yes, thank you, John. And thank you, Stacy, for taking up that time with that great comment. So as the author of Involuntary Exit, A Woman's Guide to Thriving After Being Fired, I talk to a lot of professionals about what they're going through. Normally they find my book after they've been let go, but most recently there have been a number of people who have said somebody recommended the book to them, and they were feeling as if their relationship with their employer might have been on the rocks, and the book helped them prepare for what came next, which meant that they were able to get on their game really quickly afterwards. So I have put together, and yes, I am selling, but trying to do it in an authentic way. I just really want you to know about what I'm doing this time around. So I thought that I could help more people who couldn't get to the book by doing a masterclass on, and it's called From Involuntary Exit to Empowerment. And it really takes you through the various stages of what you do when you hear the news, how you can lean out publicly, how you can manage the emotions of the job loss, and how you can begin again and really teach yourself to be resilient. It's 4 sessions, and it's going to start November 15th. And you can pay for all 4 sessions, and I have the link in there. But basically, my goal for this first go round, which is a public launch, is to hear back from you and to see what works for you, and to really help people at this time. The end of the year and the beginning of the year can be tough times for people in terms of career transition. So thank you, John, for allowing me to put that out there. And if you don't remember the link, you can go to my website, which is theprofessionalguide.com.
I wish you much success with that.
Thank you.
Awesome that you're doing that. So before we wrap up, and of course, obviously, if you still have questions, feel free to put that in because we have about 10 minutes left. We want to know from you, what would be a topic that you would love for us to come back with and share some information and open up some space with you, just like we're doing today and like we've done in the past. We were talking before today's webinar that we definitely enjoy doing these and bringing these to everybody, but we just want to continually make sure that it is of value and of service to you in wherever you're at along with your career development. So if there is a particular topic that is of interest, we'd appreciate it if you would either, 1, go ahead and put it in the chat, or 2, you can always email us or message us on LinkedIn specifically if you don't want to put that in the chat for everybody, just for us to reach out, because we're going to start planning our next webinar pretty soon. And we just want to use some data to inform what those decisions may be. And Robin and Maria, anything you want to add to that?
I just want to add, if there was a specific question or angle about networking that we did not cover, or something that's going on with you in your career transition, you have us now. We're 3 experts that have both, Maria does incredible personal branding, and John does coaching for mid-career professionals, and I work with women who are navigating their way upward. We're happy to answer those questions. It doesn't necessarily have to be just on the networking topic, because I think between the 3 of us, we've really heard a lot from people out there who are on their career journeys.
Rita responded,
Okay.
How to excel on the job after you land your job. Yes.
Okay.
That is something we could absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely do.
Yes. Yes. And Rita, does any of that have to do with, I hate to say these words, imposter syndrome? Or does it have to do with, when you succeed, how do you establish your authority in a new job? How to talk about ourselves without looking like we are bragging. Okay.
Totally imposter syndrome.
Right. Okay, totally imposter. Okay.
How to self-advocate as a rising and senior leader, and the concept of sponsorship. Stacy, can you clarify sponsorship for me, please?
Yeah, I know what she means. I'm pretty sure. But let's hear from you, Stacy.
Mentorship.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sponsorship, it's funny. It's something that maybe some of us have been lucky enough to have. It's when you're in a corporate arena and somebody in power actually sponsors you and takes an interest in, think this is what you mean, Stacy, and takes an interest in moving your career up So for example, an organization where I was, the chairman of the board was very interested in sponsoring a colleague, right? And so when he was behind closed doors and people were talking about who can we find to do this job, he mentioned the colleague's name. Who can we find to do you think we should promote such and such or increase salaries because I think such and such deserves it? He would constantly advocate and sponsor that person. And it's something that had been done, I think, in the finance firms and you know, some of the traditional firms that were male dominated, and they would sponsor other men that they were talking with. Women, and this is a generalization, but I'll just say, are more used to mentorship, where somebody takes you under their wing and they guide you in how to succeed in your job, and they tell you how to be successful, but they're not necessarily in the room where it happens, where they can say, you ought to put Maria in this room. And one of the goals of getting women in higher positions is enabling women to sponsor other women for those roles. Because when I first heard about that concept, I thought, man, that's how they do it. That's really important. That's what I want to do. And I have sponsored some others to go into higher roles, and it's very rewarding for both of us.
Nice. Yeah, that's helpful. Stacy confirms that. Also wrote, how do you get a sponsor or a mentor in that regard? So another topic potentially there as well.
It's true. And that gets us back to networking because mentorship and sponsorship should be natural. It's mentorship. I know a lot of companies have mentoring programs, and if you click, it's great. If you don't, it's just another meeting that you have to hold. So what is great internally to network is to really go out to lunch with different people or have coffee with different people and see who's really on the same value chart as you, who really gets you, and do you get them? And that can become your mentor, even if it's an unofficial one. Now, within an organization, you can ask for meetings with higher ups. You can say, oh, I'd love to talk with this one and that one. But the more you expose yourself to people in power, the more likely you will be to get a sponsor. And it's a whole other topic because it takes certain strategies to do that, but it's definitely a feasible thing and a goal.
Jocelyn mentioned another possible topic could be creating an effective first 90-day plan in the new job.
Yeah, that's a really a good one. And I just met with somebody who's a new dean, and she actually put together what she achieved in the first 60 days, which was really impressive. And I figured, boy, she must have had a running list of things that she knew would be externally recognized, because we can do a lot in our first months on a job, but having them be an externally recognized achievement is something we can talk about, you know, and the difference between what those are.
Very nice. Good stuff. I think we're good. I think we are good. So I want to take a moment to thank everyone for attending. A replay will be made available since you've registered for the webinar. You can look for an email from me tomorrow, or I should say by tomorrow. If I get super ambitious, it might happen later on tonight, but it's going to take a while to download the file and upload it. But this will be available as well. So feel free to go back and take a look at this again, share with someone in your network. And, you know, I'm going to go around the horn one last time for any last minute closing thoughts. Marie, I'll start with you.
So we've discussed so much, but you know, it should be something you enjoy, and it shouldn't be something that's feared. It should be something that's natural. I mean, we all make connections all day long, so don't think of it as exercise that's uncomfortable.
Thank you. Robin.
So I just want to say, think of all three of us in your network. And we will think of all of you in our network. And by the end of today, my challenge to you is to reach out to one person you haven't reached out to, that you've been thinking about, or anybody that pops up into your head. And you can say, here's your opening line. I went to a webinar about networking and I want to practice. So
Love it.
how about if we have a 15-minute virtual coffee and see what happens?
I love that. And Maria, I'm gonna emphasize your words one last time. Earlier, you said the more people you talk to, the more doors open.
Yes.
So keep that in mind to authentically go out there and network. And we look forward to seeing you at another webinar really soon. But more importantly, thank you for spending some time with us today. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you really soon, be in another webinar or just even on LinkedIn. So we'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.